Hey. All right. We got two folks that are already on. Welcome. It is about time for us to talk about protecting the house. Let's get some ground rules. Let's set some ground rules. What I'd like for you to do, if you can, you know how we do it. I would love for you to share. Share it on my page, share it on your page, share it on the group page, share it on your YouTube. Make sure that folks are getting onto it because this is going to be a phenomenal conversation. We have um, one of the folks that I think the world needs to hear just because of her sincerity, her heart concerning finances, and helping people become financially literate. If anyone did not know that they were financially illiterate, it was during this time of quarantine, during this time of COVID, where they found out that they didn't know what they thought they knew, especially when you got extra money in your unemployment and stimulus checks and still went broke. Folks are still trying to gather themselves and figure out what to do next. Well, we have some ideas for you, and so I'm so glad that we have Lisa with us today. Lisa, say hello to the people.
Hello, everyone. Happy Wednesday. Super excited to be connecting with you all today to talk more about how we can protect our house, our financial house.
Absolutely. And so we don't want to belabor the time because this is going to be content heavy. Hope you're ready for this conversation. The word of God, I'm gonna start. The Bible says something that I think is absolutely important, that I want just two verses of scripture. So we're talking about protecting this house. When I was playing pro ball, semi-pro ball, correction, when I was playing semi-pro football, one of the things that we did when we got to the goal line stance, I had a coach who drilled it into all of us on the defensive end that you have to protect your house. I don't care what it feels like. I don't care what how tired you are. Nobody crosses this line. No one makes it into the end zone. If they make it in and it's on you, you have let our entire house down. Um, and it was a real challenge for me as a young guy, hearing these coaches yell at me, protect this house, don't let anybody in this house. That we were all foaming at the mouth, it seemed. And when I got into the semi pro, these guys used to just it's almost like they took leashes off of pit bulls, because that kind of language means that you are not allowed to let anybody in beyond this zone. And so I want to talk to you tonight. We are going to talk to you tonight about something that I think is absolutely important: protecting your financial house. The book of Proverbs, the 13th chapter, the 22nd verse, I'm reading from the Amplified translation. It says this. I'm reading two portions of scripture, but the first one says this: a good man leaves an inheritance to his children's children, and the wealth of the sinner is stored up for the hands of the righteous. I'll read it again. A good man leaves an inheritance for his children's children, and the wealth of the sinner is stored up for the hands of the righteous. Now, the Bible, it's in the church circles, we hear the B clause of that statement all the time. The wealth of the wicked is laid up for the just, but we forget that it is a conjunctive. It is connected with a previous thought. The previous thought was the opening statement to the text was, a good man leaves an inheritance to his children's children. So first and foremost, if we're talking about our house, we've got to begin to think generationally. That's the first thing I want you to get out of that verse of scripture right there, that he says, leave an inheritance for his children's children. So we should begin to think, when we're talking about protecting our house, when we're talking about our finances, we've got to begin thinking not just for our kids, but for our kids' kids. If you go back and you see the story about John JFK and his father while they were in, I want to say, Ireland. He came up with 100-year plan. He said, if I got to do this for 100 years, my kids are going to be all right when they get to America. And needless to say, I mean, he did it. And you can say what you want to say about what means he did to get there. He got it done. That's how these names last forever. The Rockefellers, the Rothschilds, their mindset was, they're going to take care of their children's children. And of course, again, that the wealth of the wicked or the wealth of the sinner is stored up or laid up for the just. Could it be that we're missing out the wealth of the wicked because we don't have anything set up for ourselves first? Could that be part of God's plan? That's just a thought. Then the second verse is really where I really took this idea for protecting this house is 1 Timothy chapter 5:8, and it says this in the Amplified: if anyone fails to provide for his own, especially for those of his own family, he has denied the faith by disregarding its precepts and is worse than an unbeliever who fulfills his obligation in this manner. If you don't provide for your own family, even the people in your house, if you don't protect your house, the Bible says you have disregarded the faith. The faith. You've disregarded your belief. You've disregarded your salvation, your baptism, your communions, all of that. You've disregarded it because the idea that God had initially established. And I'm sorry, Lisa, I got to get a little scripture in
No,
this foundation. But you got to understand from the very beginning, from Genesis, God's plan where man was concerned was family. God put man in a place that was already established for him. His house was already built for him. So what we see in Genesis is actually a man establishing a house that he sets his son in to protect. Wow. And when you look at it from the financial perspective, everything that God had that he counted worthy, at least on this planet, he turned over to Adam, his son, man. Why in the world, if we are a group of people who say we believe in something, don't take time to build something and then turn it over to our children? I come today to charge you, whether you be on Facebook or on YouTube, protect your house. Lisa, how in the world do we do this financially? I'm going to segue to you because you are the voice. You are the voice for our people tonight. How do we do this?
Well, that's actually a great question. And I definitely feel that, like you mentioned, setting your house is clearly setting the foundation to every single other area in your financial journey. So I did mention this before, but I want us to look at our financial house just like how we will look at any other house.
Mm-hmm.
The thing is, Pastor, when we're building a house, we want to make sure that we're building it from the ground and then working our way up. So we want to make sure that the first thing that we ever do in our financial journey is start with the base. And if we actually look at our financial foundation and look at the financial house, the first thing that you see is protection, right? So that area right there, protection, is what we're going to be focusing the focus for tonight's call, okay, for tonight's live. So with that being said, what is protection, right? Many people might be wondering, well, protection for many of us, okay, is not necessarily just, protection in the event that, something happens to you or in terms of health, disability, premature death, right? Estate planning, right? Protecting your assets. Those are all the things that fall in within that category. Okay. But I want to break down the word. Okay. The dictionary's definition of protection is it's a person or a thing that prevents someone or something from suffering, harm, or injury.
That's good. Okay. Say that again.
I said that the dictionary definition of protection is a person or thing that prevents someone or something from suffering, harm, or injury.
Yeah.
Okay. So whenever I think of the word protection, I think of the word prevention. Okay. Because the thing is, most times whenever you need something, it's too late.
Right.
So I want to protect my family. I want to protect those around me. So they will prevent themselves from going into harm, okay, or injury. So that's why, Pastor, whenever we start with our foundation, we start with protection, because as a priority, you should always consider protection first. Always, okay? Why? Well, let's take a look at something, right? If, for example, if we try to save, okay, a few $100s a month, but if we have no insurance set in place for ourselves, when we get sick, disabled, or, a sudden death, because we all have an expiration date, we just don't know when that day is.
Right.
Those savings that we have, Pastor, even if we have, or what happens if you don't even have any savings? Okay. Then you usually see people that go on GoFundMe accounts, right? They create a GoFundMe account. They're asking people for money, for donation. And this is something that I mentioned before in some of my talks. Other people are not responsible for your family's funeral. That is
Say
something
that.
that we need to be taken care of.
I want to say that again. I'm going to say it with the ebullience that I have. It's nobody else's responsibility for your funeral. I'm gonna say it for the people in the back. We're not responsible for taking care of your funeral expenses. All right, I go ahead, dear. I just had to
No,
say it
I
again.
absolutely agree with you, Pastor, because the thing is, GoFundMe is not a life insurance. Okay.
Jesus.
It's not a life insurance. It is important for us to take full responsibility while we're still alive and take care of those responsibilities that will arise when we're no longer here.
Amen.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's why the first thing that I want to do, Pastor, is that I want to talk about life insurance. Okay.
Let's
I
do
want
that.
to talk about it, and I really feel that it is important that people fully understand what life insurance is, right? Because there's a lot of misconceptions about life insurance. A lot of people are wondering, do I really need it? What is it for, right? What type of life insurance should I get, right? So a lot of those questions that people may have, I want to just give some clarity to. Okay.
Right.
So the first thing that I want to do is that I want to break down what life insurance is, right? Understanding what life insurance is. So life insurance isn't necessarily the best conversation to have, right? Is a conversation that most people shy away from. But if you're listening to me on this call, I want you to think about it this way. Okay? When you're buying life insurance, you're not insuring your life.
Yeah.
It ensures your family's ability to continue on without being financially devastated.
Come on and say that again. Say that again.
When you are buying life insurance, Pastor, you're not necessarily insuring your life. It ensures the life or the responsibility of the family's ability to be able to continue on without you financially. Because
Gee.
it is already enough that the family has to mourn someone's death. But imagine on top of that, if that person was the breadwinner, if that person was contributing to the household and that income is no longer there, how will that affect the family?
Wow.
Okay. Now I do have, some formulas that I will break down to every single one of you here listening to this live that will help you identify how can I find not only the right coverage or the right life insurance for myself, but identifying how much do I even need in the first place. Okay.
Right.
But one thing that I want to do, and I actually found this, and this I actually got from one of our workshops where we actually break down, different types of life insurance. And pretty much I'm just summarizing everything that we teach in one of our workshops. But this is actually a letter that was written from your life insurance to you. Okay, so I'm going to read this out loud because I really feel like this is something that every time I read it, it moves me.
And I'm
Okay.
going to put it on the screen.
Okay, yes, thank you. Hello, I am your life insurance policy. You and I have similar purposes in this world. It is your job to provide food, clothing, shelter, schooling, medicine, and other things for your loved ones.
Yeah.
You do this while I lie in your safe deposit box. I have faith and trust in you. Out of your earnings will come the cost of my upkeep. At times, I may appear insignificant to you, but someday, and who knows when, you and I will change places. When you are laid to rest, I will come alive and do your job.
Whew.
I may provide food, clothing, shelter, schooling, medicine, and other things your family will continue to need, just as you are doing now.
My God.
When your work and labor are done, mine will begin. Through me, your hands can carry on. Whenever you feel the price you're paying for my upkeep is burdensome, remember that I can do more for you and your family than you will ever do for me. If you do your part, I will do mine. Pastor,
Listen,
every time I
listen.
read that, it honestly, it brings goosebumps.
And it brought a tear to my eye because I think that might be the best way to see, consider, think about what life insurance does for you. The mere fact that, man, that was heavy. I wasn't planning for that, y'all. I honestly wasn't planning. That one was heavy for me. I spent the last 2 days playing with my daughter, and that's literally all I've been thinking about. After I'm dead, I don't want her to want for anything. And of course, this is after we had our talk on Monday.
Yes,
Um, and it just that hit home. You don't your the life insurance's job is to work after we're gone.
exactly.
Man.
Exactly. So basically, in other words, it is a contract that you have with the company. So, for example, Pastor, let's say I'm an insurance company
Yeah.
and you come to me and say, hey, I will like X amount of coverage. And we agree on this. Okay. So you and I will agree on this. And then my job is to make sure that you have a healthy longevity life.
Yeah.
And whenever you're no longer around, it is my responsibility, my job to pay out that X amount of coverage to your family.
Yeah.
Okay. That
Okay.
is how life insurance works, the contractor way. Okay. But I now want to get to just another question that we get very often, and that is how much life insurance do I actually need?
Let's look at
Okay.
that.
So yeah, let's
Okay.
look at that. Perfect. Thank you, Pastor. So let's think about it this way, right? I really like this example that we're using from this book. By the way, every single thing that I'm referencing to right now, I'm either referencing from our workshops or from our Saving Your Future book, which I'll show you how you can also get access to this book. Every single thing you want to learn about finance, you'll find it in this book. Okay. Now, let me break this down. Buying car insurance is simple, right? If your car, let's say your car is worth 35,000, you will need 35,000 to cover your car. Okay, in the event of an accident or whatever the case is, right? Guess what? The same thing applies to your house, right? If your house is worth 300,000, you're not going to get 100,000 of home insurance for your home. Okay, you will like to get the same amount of coverage that it costs for that home just to cover, the coverage in the case of disasters or anything that might arise. Guess what? The same thing applies to us. But the thing is, in order for us to break down how much coverage we need, we actually break down we actually use this formula called the dime method. Okay, so the dime method, and the way that it's broken down is like this, right? Dime stands for debt, income, mortgage, and education. Let me break those things down. The debt, any debts that you may have, whether that is credit cards, loans, debts, personal loans, whatever the case is, we are going to add up those debts, all right, and put that in the debt column. We're going to take your income, your annual income, but then we're going to multiply that number times 10. Now, you're probably wondering why 10? Because statistically speaking, it takes a family up to 10 years to bounce back financially after the death of a loved one. 10 years, okay? So with that being said, if I were to take your income and multiply that by 10, at least you have the peace of mind knowing that for the next 10 years, while you're no longer here, your family will be able to continue as if they never skipped a beat with your income, okay? On top of that, we also want to take into consideration any mortgage balances that there is. Okay, if I have a $200,000 left on my mortgage, I want to also make sure that I incorporate that into my insurance so my family will be able to at least, they won't be able to default on the mortgage, okay, when I no longer can contribute. And then on top of that, the E stands for education. So the education is not necessarily your education, we're now talking about the kids. So if we have, let's say, for example, you have 2 kids, okay? If we, on average, estimate that a 4-year college is about $15,000 a year, that's $60,000 for both kids that you will need. Adding that together, that's about $120,000. okay? Assuming that you have 2 kids. So with that being said, once I add all of these things up, it would equal the amount of protection that I would need. Okay. Then this number, we will subtract it, or we will subtract any assets that you may have. Okay. So if you have, an emergency fund, or if you have a 401k or some type of retirement plan where you have a lump sum of money accumulated there, we will subtract those assets from your insurable need. Okay.
Yeah.
So, with that being said, Pastor, this is the formula that we use. We do have activities and during our workshops that we help break this formula down for people, whether they're doing it as a spouse, as a couple, or they're just doing it individually. Okay. Of course, everybody's numbers looks different. That's why it's good to just give them the overview so everyone here can identify how much coverage you need if you didn't know so. Some of us were under coverage. We have, we're underinsured. Some of us have more insurance than we actually really need, right? So it's really good to understand where that comes from. Okay.
I think we might have stumbled on something that many of us have not taken time to consider. Part of that is the amount of time it takes to bounce back after a loss. Because truthfully, in our communities, I'll be honest with you, the folks will grieve with you the week or two of the death. They'll bring fried chicken. They'll bring empanadas to the house. They'll hang out with you. They'll play dominoes with you into the wee hours of the morning. After the body is in the ground, you're going to start to see the trickle off effect where people are going to go back to their lives. There are no more cards coming with envelopes in them. And it's almost anticipated that we go right back to living.
Yeah.
The problem, however, especially if it was the home of a sole provider, or if they were the primary breadwinner, or they were the major portion of the income for the home. That's borrowing, the house is paid off. That's borrowing the car. That's if the car is paid off. It's still going to take about a decade to recover from the loss.
Exactly.
A decade. Now, here's the crazy part, Lisa. If you're looking at children, for example, who may be in high school at the loss of a mom or a dad, and there is no coverage, those children have to now figure out what they're going to do for their education. And could it be that there may be some folks who were on course, had a trajectory, not just to go to college, but to finish well, but because of a sudden loss of a loved one, they could not go to school, and they ended up having to go into a trade, or they dropped out. Who's to say? I mean, we just this weekend alone, we lost in this country, we lost almost 2,000 more people to COVID-19. I'm sure that those folks didn't start the summer thinking about dying to COVID, and I can almost guarantee that all of them did not have life insurance. Now, these families have to prepare. Watch this, y'all, to make it to 2030 to recover from the loss. Think about that. Just think about that. Why it's important, why we have to really take into consideration. I know this is not a fun conversation, but why we have to take into consideration protecting the house, because even after we're gone, we create a vacuum. And what we don't want is that there becomes an emotional, if there's an emotional vacuum, but because we did not prepare ourselves financially, there is left a financial vacuum as well.
Absolutely.
And based on those numbers in the DIME model, so the DIME principle is debt, income by 10 years, mortgage, and education, if not for myself, for the children.
Yes.
We minus our assets from that, and that's how you come up with with the generic, or the general number for our policy.
Absolutely.
So I'm hoping that some folks are paying attention to this, listening to this, and are saying, "Woo, maybe this $50,000 policy that I've been boasting about
isn't enough."
Yeah, does that make sense? Because at the end of the day, if we're going to protect our house, we need to protect our house. You say, "Well, I don't own a home. I don't have a car." At the same time, you have to consider that there's some other things that are here. And if that's the case, then that's all the more reason why your people should be better off, because you should have a little bit more to put into your insurance policies, and protecting yourself. Go ahead, Lisa.
Absolutely, Pastor. Now that we've determined how much life insurance we need, we now want to determine what type of life insurance is right for me. Okay. So with that being said, why don't we take a look at the different types of life insurance? Okay.
Sure.
So the main two ones that you will hear a lot of are term insurance and then permanent insurance. Okay. Now, let me break these down for you. Term life insurance, the first thing that a lot of people think about when they hear the word term is just term stands for it lasts you for a number of years. Okay, you're covered for a certain period of time. Okay, hence the word is term. It's short for temporary. So usually you can get term insurance that it will cover you for 5 years, 10 years, 15, 30 being the maximum. Okay, you can rarely find anything higher than that, maybe 35. However, this type of insurance is usually the most affordable upfront. Okay, so initially it's the most affordable. So if you're looking to get a higher amount of coverage, you can get a higher amount of coverage in a term at the most affordable price that you can get. Okay, however, I want to clear something up because I did say that it is affordable initially. Okay, let's say I'm covered with a 30-year policy. Okay, by the time I turn 65, I would have to renew that policy. However, if the policy at that time frame, they come back and they say, Lisa, unfortunately, you have certain health conditions that do not allow us to renew this policy for you, I'm no longer insurable. Okay.
Right.
Because I do not know what type of health conditions I will have at the age of 65 or 70. Okay. So that's the only thing about permanent or temporary life insurance. When you are getting that type of life insurance, understand that if you're only going to be covering yourself for a period of time, if you are no longer insurable after that, or if you are, it's going to be very expensive for you to renew. Okay, very expensive. I've seen this so many times. All right, understand this as well. When you're buying term life insurance, it's only strictly insurance. Okay, it's not, for example, most people, Pastor, they tend to outlive their term life insurance policy. So when that happens, it's not that, okay, you didn't pass away during those 20, 30 years, the company gives you your money back. It doesn't work that way. Okay, you do not build any equity. There's no cash value being built within these life insurance plans. All right, it's just strictly life insurance.
Right.
Okay. Now, if we take a look at our permanent life insurance, or otherwise referred to as our cash value life insurance, these policies, because they're meant to cover you for your entire life, they are initially higher upfront. Okay, the costs are higher upfront initially. But what happens with that is that after some time, the cost tends to level out. So it remains the same and it does not increase after some years. Okay, so therefore it does become a little bit more affordable, as opposed to having, an affordable coverage now, but then having to renew it at a much higher cost later on. Okay. Now, another thing that I want you all to understand is that the reason why this is also called a cash value life insurance is because you're building equity within this plan. For example, I like to refer to these as term is like renting an apartment. Permanent life insurance is like owning a home. Okay, when I rent an apartment, I'm only, paying for the time that I live in that apartment. Okay. When I move out, Pastor, I cannot go to my landlord and say, hey, can I get my money back? No. Right? I paid when I needed it. Okay. Now, with permanent life insurance, you are building equity, right? When I pay my mortgage, I'm building equity on that home. So that equity that I'm building, okay, the same thing applies to my life insurance plan, my permanent life insurance. I can use that equity for other things that may arise, okay, in the future.
Yeah.
So that's the difference in between term insurance and permanent life insurance. Okay, term is temporary, so it will end. Permanent life insurance, it does not end. So it never ends until. So what I'm trying to say is it doesn't end as long as you pay for it.
Got it.
Okay? So I hope that summarizes, right, the difference in between the two. Ultimately, it's just identifying what your situation is, what you can and cannot do, right? Because I have people that want to do permanent life insurance, but maybe that is just not affordable for them right now. Okay? Or maybe you have people that just are looking to temporarily cover something like a mortgage, right? We have a lot of people that own mortgages that get term life insurance because a mortgage is 30 years, so you can get a term that's for 30 years as well.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
It's and I think it makes sense. I think what many people have heard or they've avoided is that the idea is they can't afford life insurance. So what are some of the things that you've heard?
Yes,
Let's talk about
we
that. Some of the
we can actually
misconceptions.
get into that, right? So that some of the misconceptions, and I actually narrowed down to the top 3 misconceptions, because the first one that we get a lot, Pastor, is life insurance is too expensive. Okay, that's the
Okay.
first one that we get. Life insurance is too expensive. Now,
Okay.
what I want to say about that is this. Life insurance, in most situations, people consider it to be way more expensive than what it really is. But it's actually way more affordable than what people think. Okay? This has a lot to do, however, with the type of life insurance that you get, right? So when I was talking about term life insurance versus permanent life insurance, term is more affordable initially. Upfront is more affordable.
Right.
Permanent is more expensive upfront, but then it levels off, right? So it all depends on the type of life insurance. Yes, that plays a huge role. But in some instances, you can protect or you can get protection, okay, in this case, life insurance, for the same cost that it would normally take you to insure your phone.
So here's the crazy part because I know that there are folks who refuse to take their phone out of the box unless they have that
Insurance.
Assurion or whatever company their provider or their whatever insurance company their particular cell phone provider uses. The reason why I say that is I think mine is like 11 or 12, maybe $15 at best
Yeah.
a month. Now, I'm not saying I have money laying around, but at the same time, for the amount of investment that I put into the phone, and what the phone, and it's not even just the value of the phone. It's not the phone itself, the value of the phone, but it's what the phone means to me,
Yeah.
right? I refuse to take this phone out for a drive and know that the insurance on that phone has lapsed.
Exactly.
I refuse to act as though I'm going to swipe up and down or I'm typing or whatever and know that that phone is not covered. I refuse. If you refuse to do it for your phone, if you refuse to do it for your car, if you refuse to do it for your house, man, you better refuse to live a life without life insurance. You better refuse to do that because and based on what we just heard, depending on the type of life insurance you have, there is equity being built up
Yes.
on. I can build equity
Yes.
on my life insurance. In other words, there is value added to the plan. Are you
Yes.
kidding me?
Yes.
And I'm sure. Wait a minute. And I'm sure, y'all, get what I'm about to tell you. I'm sure that the percentage on the equity on my life insurance is better than the percentage of or the rate of return or increase on the money in my saving account.
It is. It is all the way better.
And so if you're a money person like me, if you're a numbers person, I'd rather watch this. Take the money that I'm putting, take some of the money that I'm paying for my monthly maintenance fee at my bank. Well, I don't have a maintenance fee. You got a maintenance fee for something. Take
Absolutely.
the money. I'd rather take that money and get an insurance policy that may or may not, but may have the opportunity to build equity? No way. If you're like me, you want to protect your house. Begin to think about protecting your financial house. The scriptures declare that you take care of your children's children. So if I get a policy, let's just say I get $1 million policy. So you mean I can build equity on my $1 million property insurance policy?
Yes, you can.
Did you hear what I just said? That it's very possible that even if I got to scratch and beg and bleed to pay the policy for the first few months to get used to it. For a policy, let's just say of $1 million, we already went through the model that we used the matrix we used to construct how we're going to get the number. But let's just say on $1 million policy that I can build equity out on that policy over the life the life that I have the policy, and in many cases it may be less than the cost for the insurance for my cell phone. Am I making that clear? I hope that's connecting with some people, because we no longer have an excuse. Now, for those of you who don't know, that I was in the process of getting my license to sell insurance. Okay, cost of our coffee, our takeout, you may be able to pay for a few months, just on 1 month of eating out. You may be able to pay a few months of your premium. Am I right? Am I right? I mean, I know I am.
You are absolutely right. You're absolutely right, Pastor.
Just on the strength of that alone, we have to reconsider. And I'm not just talking to people who are in their 50s and 60s. I'm talking to you 20-something-year-old geniuses who are sitting at home behind your computer with the tablet out, and you're eating your oat milk ice cream. I'm telling you now, because this is the time to secure the policies. Figure out which one you need and secure them, because it's less expensive for people like y'all.
Yes.
All right, I'm gonna jump off my pulpit again. I'm jumping off the soapbox. I'm come back to you now, Lisa.
And I also want to add on to that, Pastor, because life insurance is the most affordable way to pass on generational wealth, right? You're literally giving the next generation a head start that many of us did not have, right? So that means if I'm covered for $500,000, and the moment that I'm no longer here, that $500,000 is passed on to my kids. That's $500,000 that is putting them in a pedestal where, their college is paid for. They can, be able to invest in properties and being able to just, do things that other people would normally not have the opportunity to do. Right. And of course, it goes back to that. It goes, I mean, it blows my mind every time I think about it, because it is something where, yes, it is not the most interesting. And I get a lot of people, every time you think about life insurance, you think about death, but we have to start thinking about wealth, because that's what life insurance is. It's not death. It's not you planning your death. It's wealth. It's basically you setting yourself to say, if there's something in this world that's guaranteed, there's two things in this world that is guaranteed. And that's death and taxes.
Guaranteed.
Okay? Guaranteed. We all have to pay taxes. If you don't pay for it, that's none of my business. I don't want to know. But we're all going to pass away one day. Okay? Like I mentioned, we may not know when that day is. Only God knows. But we're going to pass away. So guess what? You're basically saying, I know I'm guaranteed to pass away one day. So I'm going to protect myself now, knowing that my family is going to get $500,000, $1 million. It's guaranteed.
And so guess what? Life insurance is actually not about death. It's about life.
It is.
I'm gonna say that. So I want y'all to catch that. Life insurance is actually not about death. It's about extending life. So when I ran track, one of the things, the focus was, no matter how long or short your leg was, the hope was that you're going to pass the baton on in a better situation than when you got it. So you're going to push to go faster. You're going to push to go harder. You're going to push to go further. When you pass the baton on, This is the victory of running a hard life. Why in the world go to work every day? Why? Why struggle? Why cry? Why save? Why put money in the mattress and do a susu hand and then go from the susu to the round robin and go into the blessing circle? All to say that I cannot transfer this money one way or another. And for many of you, you don't even understand that you may not have children, but you may have a niece or a nephew, or you may say, you know what? I've been blessed by these. I've received the blessings. I've heard some good information. I want to help these local organizations.
Yeah, churches.
Transfer that. Put them in a better situation, right?
Very,
As a matter of fact, I've actually begun myself for the church that I lead in preparing to have conversations with folks about their transition and legacy, just sowing into the house, leaving a legacy seed with the ministry, because many people are dying and going. Leona Helmsley left millions of dollars to her cat.
wow.
I'm I'm talking about Boku bucks.
Wow.
Well, there has to be something more than leaving your cash at the pet cemetery.
Yes.
This is the exact opposite of the GoFundMe people, right? We
Right.
have to find a way to transition our life. You never actually die. If you train the children well, teach them about investment, teach them about finances, teach them about various avenues to build and amass finance. But even better than that is when you transition, you give them the sum total of your life, and they turn it around. Now, if they mess it up, you ain't gonna be here to see it. But at least put them in the right spot. Okay, I'm done. All right. We have the second misconception here.
Yeah, so the second misconception that we get a lot is, okay, well, Lisa, I may have some pre-existing conditions in terms of health conditions, or some minor health issues, or even some health conditions like, diabetes, liver, or even cancer, right? I even seen people that do have cancer and get insured. What happens is that a lot of people already prejudge and say, well, you know what, it's just all hope is lost. I can get insured. I'm uninsurable. Yet they never actually went out and did their research and actually tried with different companies to see if they can actually get insurance, right? So that's why I always say that don't leave that decision up to you. Okay. I would always say go out there and try, because there are, honestly, you just never know. There are companies out there that will insure you. Okay. Yes, depending on what condition you may have, it will require you to have higher premiums, because you are now a higher risk, considered a higher risk to the company. Okay. But in that situation, right, there are companies that are willing to insure you. Okay. So that's why we never know. It's good to just go out there and try. There's hundreds, if not thousands, of insurance companies out there. Okay. And that's actually one of the advantages that many people have in working with us, is that we work with so many different companies that if one company says no, we'll try the next one. If one company says no, we'll try all of them until we honestly can say, you know what, Pastor, we tried all of them. We can't get you insured. But I'm telling you that there is companies out there that will insure you depending on the conditions that you may have. So it's always good to try because of that. Now, can you hear me fine, Pastor?
I muted myself so I don't talk
Oh,
in front of
okay.
you. I can hear you fine because I
I
was
thought
I
it
was
was me.
amen.
Testing 1, 2, 3.
Yes, we're good. So let's jump on the third
Yes.
misconception. I really hope some folks are getting something. If you are, jump in the chat and say that this is good. I'm hoping you're catching this. I'm talking about protecting your house financially, not the house when you're there, but after you leave, after you transition to glory. I want you to pay close attention to this. Now let's as we come, I'm gonna try to pull it in, but this is the misconceptions of
Yes.
about life insurance number 3.
So this is another big one, and when I was narrowed down to the top three, I really wanted to get into this one because a lot of people say, Lisa, I have life insurance through my job. I'm good. I'm fine, right? And in most situations, what happens is that the life insurance, which is, by the way, don't get me wrong, having life insurance through your job, which we refer to group insurance, is a great benefit that the company can offer their employees. However, what happens is that it tends to be very low coverage. Okay, so what companies do, or what some employers do, they only cover you for at least 1 or 2 years of your salary. So if I'm earning $50,000 a year, I'm only covered for at least 100,000. Now, 100,000, depending on where you fall within your dime method, may not be sufficient enough for you to be able to cover your whole responsibilities. Okay,
Right.
you're no longer around. So another thing that I also want people to consider is that you're only insured when you're with that job. The moment you retire, or if you get terminated, okay, or if you just leave voluntarily to another position, whatever the case, another job, you're no longer covered. Okay, some companies do give you the ability, or they give you like the 30 days to convert it into your own personal policy. Some companies don't give you that option, right? So this is why I always recommend, even if you have something through your job, that's great. But I would always recommend for you to get your own personal coverage on the side, because it isn't sufficient to just depend on the insurance that your employer gives you. Okay,
True.
so that's usually another really big misconception that we get here, Pastor.
Or your bank. I learned that the hard way.
Yes,
All right, or your bank. Lisa,
absolutely. Yeah.
while we were having that talk, Lisa says something that I wanted to share with the folks. Says banks were never meant to be saving institutions; they were designed to be lending institutions, institutions for loaning money. And
Yes.
so, if you're going to go to your bank, the idea, any product that they're going to present to you, the design is to get something out of you
Yes.
other than you leaving your money there.
Exactly.
All right. So that's something you always want to consider. Even life insurance, or anything is that they created those products because the goal is to get something from you, but
Mhm.
they were actually designed to loan to you. We need to take full advantage of that, even in the communities of Black and Brown folks as well.
Absolutely. Absolutely, Pastor. You couldn't have said it any better. And which is going to lead to our next topic, right? Because one of the things that, Pastor, did you know that more people are more afraid of living too long as opposed to dying too soon?
Jesus, say that again.
More people are afraid of living too long as opposed to dying too soon.
Why do you think that is? That's good. I'm
Right?
fine.
When I first heard this, I was like, no, this is real. This is true. And yes, it's actually been in a lot of surveys in a lot of these, Ivy League schools and big institutions. So the thing is this, Pastor, right? And this is why I want to get into annuities, right? Really quickly, I just want to touch about annuities because I want the world to understand what annuities are. But before I get into that, I want to distinguish the difference in between the two. Okay, so life insurance is it for in the event that you die too soon. Okay, so your family will get the big death benefit payout from the company, in this case from the insurance company, when you're no longer around.
Right.
Okay, now annuities are actually the opposite of life insurance. However, you can get both through an insurance company. However, annuities are specifically designed for in the event that you live too long. Okay, most people are afraid that they're going to outlive their money.
Woo. Right.
So when that happens, okay, when you have something set in place like a contract with the insurance company for an annuity, you will win in the long term. Why? Because the company then is going to be paying you out a lifetime income for the rest of your life. Okay, so in other words, this is how I like to break it down. Life insurance companies, I have a contract with the company. They actually want me to live longer, because the longer I live, the less they will have to come out of pocket to pay my beneficiaries that lump sum of money. Okay. However, annuities, they want you to die sooner. Okay. With an annuity, they want you to die sooner because the longer you live, the more money they have to pay out. So what tends to happen with annuities, let's say I have $100,000 or 50 or even 5,000. I see people get annuities with $5,000. Okay. You're transferring that money over. And now the company will, especially if you have this as a rider, as a benefit, the company, as long as you start, when it's time for you to retire, they will start to pay you out a yearly or a monthly salary. Okay. So in other words, they will end up paying you out more money than what you put in.
My goodness. I hope y'all heard this. And the reason why I asked Lisa to mention this is because this is what when I was um studying for the exam, this was the thing that the company that I was learning with tried to get us to avoid. But I hate to say it, all of my well-off white friends who had like grandparents and whenever I said, how come y'all always get money? Is it a trust fund? And they said, no, it's the annuity. They get paid out. And I'm like, but they retired 20, 30 years ago. They said, as long as they live, the annuity is going to pay them out. This is why part of their portfolio is not just stocks and bonds and in life insurance. It's also vehicles like the annuities
Exactly.
because on one end they're gonna get money they're getting money, but on the other end they're still getting money. And I know folks are saying, well, that's a lot of money you got to put out. But think about it. When it comes down to the end of life or retirement, you don't want to have to depend on Social Security only, and you don't want to have to depend on your retirement fund that you started working on when you were 45 and 50. So these are things, again, products, vehicles you want to take advantage of. And for those of you who are thinking, I don't know if I want to do life insurance because of annuity is another vehicle that you should really
Absolutely.
consider, and you should talk to your
Absolutely.
financial advisor about.
Absolutely. Because the same concept applies, right? If I have an annuity, guess what? That they annuities also have a death benefit, which is what you have with a life insurance. So if I'm no longer here, that that money, that lump sum of money is going to be passed on to my loved ones. The
Correct.
same concept as life insurance. However, it's a lump sum of money that you pay once, okay? And then you let that money continue to grow there for an extended period of time.
My
Okay,
goodness.
as opposed to life insurance is it's a contribution that you're making monthly, quarterly, or once a year.
Oh my goodness.
And okay, let's talk about this really quickly, Pastor. Let's talk about really quickly the different types of annuities. Okay,
Sure.
we have three major types of annuities. The first one is a fixed index annuity. This is where, I mean, the word fixed, as you can hear, is fixed. It does not change. So this is where you have a guaranteed rate of return that you're going to be earning from the money that you have contributed into your annuity. Okay, this amount can either be somewhere between 3 to 4%. Is a little bit higher than a CD account in terms of returns, but that is going to be a guaranteed amount. Okay, then we have second, the index annuity. Now, with the index annuity, this is where you can base off your returns. Your returns in terms of your rate of return that you're getting back from the annuity are based off of a market index called the S&P 500. Okay, many of you have probably heard of it. Maybe many of you haven't. The S&P 500 is made up of the 500 best performing companies in the U.S. So companies like Facebook, companies like McDonald's, Tesla, Google. Depending on how all of these companies perform, you and I will be getting accredited back. The maximum that I've seen can be anywhere between even up to 8%, okay, on average. But what's so good about index annuities is that you never lose money. You never lose money in these strategies, okay? Whenever you hear the word index, you think about no losses. You think about at least an average rate of return that can yield you at least a 7 to 8%, okay, maximum. Now, the third category is our variable annuity. Now, whenever you hear the word variable, think about a roller coaster ride, because that's what variable is. Variable is very unpredictable.
Right.
Because the performance, what the money that I'm going to be making back on my investments or my rate of return, it can be based off of stocks, it can be based off of bonds, mutual funds, or whatever the case is, where these investments have a mind of its own. You and I cannot predict what the stock market is going to perform at today, right?
Right.
It can yield me a lot of money, but I can also lose a lot of money, right? So depending on where you at in life, you probably don't want to risk or put a lot of money out there that has the ability to lose. Okay, so these are the different types of life insurance, not life insurance, I'm sorry. These are the 3 different types of annuities that there is out there, and it's all depending on where you fall in within your investment strategy. Okay.
Yes. That hopefully some folks are paying attention, folks are taking notes. Now, y'all, if this information is helping you and you will have some further questions and you really want to connect, I'm going to put Lisa's information up here. All right. I want y'all to make sure that you take advantage of this resource. Can I put the email and I have a phone number here. Can I put them both up?
Absolutely.
There we go, y'all. Listen, Lisa's information is here on the screen. I need you all to connect. I need you to reach out to her, talk to her. If it's for life insurance, as she says, there are various tools that you can use. But I think also, if you missed the last video with Lisa, we talked about debt management and saving and reworking your budget, and of course we're on the 12-week challenge, the savings challenge, and I'm really going to challenge you. Connect with Lisa as the best as you can, as soon as you can. Let's make some things happen where you're going to begin to secure your financial future. I understand that some of us are nervous, especially given this. We are waiting. Listen, for those you clowns down there in DC, these people are waiting on the stimulus check, sirs and ma'ams. Get it together, because some folks thought y'all were going to follow up with that second check. It has not come yet, and folks need it. Don't play with us. All right? Don't play with us. It's unfair. It's not right. Give us our money. We need our ducats. Send the people their money, but then also, y'all, take some time, get this information. Now, the phone number is here on the screen. This phone number, if you text it, there is a book that they can have access to, and I want to plug it before we run out of time.
Yes.
All right. So Lisa's company, they have a desire to see 30 to help 30 million families by the year 2030 develop and come out of a financial illiteracy. So they have a national campaign for financial literacy. Some of the folks who were on the last time got on. I need you all to take this information down, screenshot it, do whatever you have to do, but shoot a text to Lisa, if at the very least, just to go over your debt. Just to talk about your debt. I'm not talking about credit reports. I'm not talking about getting you to a 780 credit score so you can go out there and you can scam and get some more shoes. I'm talking about protecting your house, making sure that your children's children are well. We have to make that. We had to make that plain. And finally, I want to pull that out. I wanted to say that I'll leave Lisa's information up on the screen, but I wanted to just talk about estate planning as quickly as possible. All right, we're gonna go a few minutes, y'all. So stick around, but I want y'all to pay attention to this. Part of the financial foundation is estate planning. All right.
Yes.
We talked about the financial foundation, and the final portion is estate planning. Let's look at the screen really quick. Go ahead, Lisa.
Absolutely. So with that being said, estate planning falls in within one big category in our protection bucket. Okay. I didn't get so much into disability and long-term care because of the simple fact that when you are purchasing certain life insurances, you can get life insurance that include both cover you for a disability and long-term care as well. Okay. So with that being said, with estate planning is simply you protecting your estate, you protecting your assets. See, everyone, as soon as you turn 18 years old, you have an estate. A lot of people think that estate planning or, will trust, all these great information or these great tools are only for wealthy, are only for rich people. Okay, if you own a car, you have an estate. Okay, if you have furniture in your home, and if you have clothes, whatever that case, all of those things are part of your estate. Okay, so with that being said, it is important to have something like a will or a trust, which are tools, okay, which are tools that you use that can help you organize how you want your estate to be distributed when you pass away. Okay, so if I have a car, I'm going to designate what's going to happen to my car when I'm no longer around. What's going to happen to my desk, right? What's going to happen to my computer, my friend? Of course, you don't have to break it down to every single thing you own, but something important like, okay, a will, which is the thing that I want to talk about next, Pastor.
Yes.
A will, all right? A will is a legal document. All right, and I'm gonna read the first sentence here. A will is a legal document that allows you to distribute your property to those of your choosing. But you know what? A will isn't necessarily only for, your personal property. A will is also important for those single parents that we have out there. Why? Because if something, or it's not even for single parents, even if you as a couple in your home, okay, if something happens to either one of you, you want to make sure that the law, or in this case the government, knows exactly who's going to be in charge of your children, designating a guardian for your young children until they're of age to make decisions for themselves. Okay, but what happens when we don't have something set in place like a will? Guess what? The government will use what they consider as their standard to decide how not only to distribute your estate, but who's going to be in charge of your children when you're no longer around. Okay, so that's why I say something like a will, a very, very easy, simple document, and we help with this process as well, so it doesn't become daunting to you. Okay, it doesn't become expensive for you to do. We help you with that. Okay,
Wow.
because it's important to have something like a will in place. But what's also another thing that is really important for us to understand is a trust. Okay, something like a trust is very important, because a trust, right? See, a will only really comes into play when you die, okay, or after you die. That's when a will comes in effect. However, a trust, which many of us refer to as a living trust, can still benefit you while you're still alive. Okay,
Mm.
some trusts are considered to be revocable, which means that you can make certain changes to them, you can adjust them as time goes on, as things change. However, okay, when you have a living trust, you can designate, that this is where your assets go, your home, your bank account, stocks, your 401k, your any type of retirement plan, right? All of these things go inside of your trust. Okay, so
Yeah.
in other words, the trust is going to be the owner of your assets. Then, excuse me, you would designate who's going to be in charge of the trust, a beneficiary, when you're no longer around. Okay, that's what a trust do. What a lot of people do not know that a trust has the power to do over a will is that a trust can prevent you from going into probate. I don't know if many of you here have ever been through probate or have heard of how lengthy that process can be. That's literally a process that you have to go to get something that's already yours.
Wow.
However, it can be lengthy and it can be very expensive if you have to go through lawyers. So it's basically the government, or in this case, IRS, trying to get money from something that in reality does not belong to them. But because your property is in probate, it's free for all. Okay? So if you don't ever want to go through that, which I honestly would not wish that on my worst enemy, I will literally tell you that it is essential for you to have a trust. Okay? Have a trust set in place, because a trust will prevent you from ever going into probate. Okay? You literally can bypass the whole probate process by just having something like a trust. You don't have to worry about your properties having to be on hold for your kids to get, which can take years. Okay, your bank accounts or anything of that nature, right? Because a trust will prevent that process. I hope that makes sense.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. It does. It is. Um,
It's lengthy.
not only is it lengthy, what I've learned is that unless we're talking about making money today for tomorrow, or we're talking about hustling, this kind of conversation is not readily received
Oh yeah,
because it takes too long.
absolutely.
Not realizing that if you're talking about protecting your house, it's not about you. It's not going to happen in your lifetime. You've got to make up your mind that the next generation, and the generation after that should be benefiting off of this. And I think I said it with the last video we had. I had to come to terms with the fact that there are things that I'm not going to see in my lifetime. I may not see what um my sacrifices have done. And you know what? I hope that I leave enough for my daughter and for her children that they can't exhaust it in their lifetime.
Yes.
That's my hope. And I'm hoping that someone is listening, someone is watching, and they're saying the same thing. That I hope that what I'm doing, I can leave for my children, my grandchildren, my great grands, my neighbors, um, my adopted kids,
Hmm.
and be all right. Because what we cannot afford to do, and we'll close it. I want to bring it to a head the same way we started. We cannot afford to hope and put the burden on these kids and these grandchildren to ask for GoFundMe money to bury the person who should have already had at the very least a funeral insurance. At the
Exactly.
very least, we can't afford to do that any longer.
Absolutely.
This is a call. This is a charge. This is a challenge to anyone who is looking to leave an impact or make an impact on their family, to protect their house. You have to. You are worse. The scriptures declare you walk away from the faith if you do not leave something for your children. You are worse than an infidel. Um, the word infidelity comes from that word infidel. It is just a wicked person, an evil person, an unbeliever. And I want to wake you up to that one more time. That finances is one of the ways that you can change that. Finances is one of the ways that you can turn that around. And again, we love to use the B clause of Proverbs 13:22, that the wealth of the wicked is laid up for the just. But we neglect to include the first portion of the scripture that makes reference to the fact that a good man leaves an inheritance for his children's children. It's the same verse. It's the same portion of scripture. You can't preach the wealth of the wicked being laid up for the just if you don't preach the fact that you've got to leave an inheritance for your children's children. That being said, y'all, I want y'all to really, 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 really thank goodness, thank God for Lisa and her faithfulness. And she does some workshops, and I want to plug this really quickly. She does increasing cash flow, debt management, building a strong financial foundation. We got some of the principles of that tonight. Proper protection, building wealth, asset accumulation, retirement planning, wealth preservation. They do platform trainings, insurance, investment, health, education. Um, and throughout this entire COVID experience, you all had been having workshops for free
Yes.
every day.
Absolutely. We're still doing them. We're still doing them, by the way.
I mean, you
And
guys are
now we actually are even hosting workshops 3 to even 4 times a day.
wow.
So some in the mornings, we have midday and 2 classes in the evening. Okay, so and they're online, right? So it's easy for you to connect. It's easy for you to, you can't say it was too far, right? To get to, because it's, you literally can connect from your phone, your computer screen, and you're there. Okay, so if you know all of those people that are watching today, you definitely not only just want to benefit from one of our workshops, but benefiting from our resources, our coaching sessions, feel free to reach out to me. Okay, this is at no cost to you whatsoever. This is just for us to fulfill our mission, which is to educate 30 million families financially by the year 2030. Okay?
I need whoever's watching this now and watching the replay to really take this into consideration. I'm big on mission. I'm big on the heart of organizations and programs. I'm big on, the ethos of what an organization desires to do, and that's one of the things that sold me when I met Lisa a year ago or so. I was actually going in to do something about finances at a spot, and she was walking out, and we exchanged information, and she was consistent, number one, persistent, number one, consistent, same message. She has not changed. The demeanor is the same, just as sweet as you want to get them as they come. But she's been saying the same thing. We want to educate. We want to bring information to people, and for that reason, I've committed to working with them. And so I've committed. My brand has committed to working with her organization. I'm part of the organization now. I want to use this platform to really help educate, and I want to help. If it may be, I may only hit 3,000 of the 30 million, but if the 3,000 that I touch can change their financial futures, then I do what I have to do. But I'm grateful to have Lisa and be a part of the team. I'm excited about it. I hope you are too. Thank y'all. Thank y'all for being faithful. Thank you. Shout everybody out who stayed on, those who popped in, and again, those who are watching the replay. Thank you so much for your faithfulness tonight. Lisa, do you have any parting words?
I just want to say thank you. I enjoy this experience more and more every single time, and I'm excited to be able to have given the opportunity just to come up here and share all this information that, in reality speaking, should not be an option, but should be a priority, right? It's unfortunate that many of us as adults, we have to make all these mistakes when it comes to our money, just so we can learn how to manage it correctly. And if our organization can relieve that load for people, then we're here to help and make it better. Okay, but it starts with us. It starts with us. So with
Thank
that
you.
being said, thank you, Pastor, for having me here.
My pleasure. Listen, y'all, take full advantage of this information. Come back and watch the replay. If you think this is going to bless somebody, share it with them. Share the information. And those of you who are still on the 12-week challenge, we have about 3 or 4 weeks to go. I think we're down to about 270 of the $1,000 that you've been saving over these last 8 weeks and 9 weeks. I want to say that I applaud you. And if you're not up in that number, you can start today. And I said this in the live yesterday. Discipline is not doing the same thing the same way every time. The power of the discipline is actually in doing. So if you may not hit the same number, you may not hit the same goal, but do something. Make sure you get something done. You may not do 100 push-ups. Try to get to 20, and there you begin to build your strength. Same thing with these finances. You may not have the money set aside that you thought you would. And I may throw another contest in. We had a contest winner a couple weeks ago, and I paid for their week's saving. I may try to do the same thing again.
I can actually even help sponsor a membership to our campaign. If I can do that, I would love to do that.
That would be incredible. I love it. Johnny on the spot. We're getting it done. So definitely we'll talk, and I definitely see how we can do that. So did you hear that, y'all? This next contest will include not just me paying for someone, but we're going to have 2 prizes, and we'll talk about that at my next live. All right. All right, Lisa and I are going to square that away. I'm excited. I hope you are too. All right, and as soon as we started talking about giveaways, that's when the numbers went up. Uh, so again, thank y'all so much. It's been phenomenal. If you missed this, go back and watch this. This was so good, so good.
Yes.
Again, I appreciate you. Remember, at NRS Ministries, our goal is to not only feed your now, but it is to fuel your next. So again, God bless you. I'll talk to you all real soon. Peace.
Good night.
All right.